first jab, I automatically got the date for my second jab.
You go to the arena, dear?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happened with everyone who went to the arena.
Right.
For the ones,
Happened with me in Jordanthorpe.
yeah.
They just said, you know, same time, 12 weeks, that's the date. And then I was on the phone to the doctors about something else. And they said, oh, by the way, we brought your second jab forward from the 7th to the 1st.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and other people have had the same.
I went to Bayton and they just said it'll be between 6 and 12 weeks, the date.
Yeah.
There was a lot of debate at the time, if you remember, about the efficacy of waiting 12 weeks and whether it should stick to the original. I think it was AstraZeneca recommendation for 4 weeks. We had in Oxford, at least our part of Oxford, just like some of you said, no date at all. Yeah, it was up in the air.
Yeah. But I mean, I rang the surgery up to ask them about it, because when I heard that people were getting the second doses or the invite, and they said for the place at Bayton, they're only going to invite people when they know they've got the correct supplies of and everybody around here, well, I'm saying everybody who qualifies around here has been getting texts or messages this week inviting them to make an appointment. So I've got mine. Mine, Sue and her dad are all next Wednesday afternoon.
Are you sticking with the same medicine, Pfizer?
Yes.
And
yes,
because there was talk down here of, you know, swapperoo.
It was the Oxford vaccination, but the week after they were getting both supplies in, both Oxford and Pfizer.
Yeah.
Well, I've been 9 weeks and I'm still waiting to hear.
well, I'm 9 weeks. We're 10 weeks on Thursday, so you should be hearing any day now.
Anytime.
Very soon then, yeah.
Too.
I'm 10 weeks, but I'm on the back
we're 10 weeks.
Are you stuffing your face with Paul the Biscuit? You can it.
Early lunch.
Right, let's get the show underway. Chris,
I'm going on a longish bike ride.
Oh yeah.
Chris is going to talk about, what is it you're going to talk about, Chris?
Well, I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you about one of my favourite sport films.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought last week that John's summary of the Gentleman Jim film was excellent, and so in that spirit, I'm going to try to match what excellent research he did. And sheer coincidence, I looked around for a really memorable film, and it's from the same year, and I didn't realise that till I started. So this is a film that I've picked as one of my top films. It's The Pride of the Yankees, and the tagline is that is the life of a man called Lou Gehrig. The Pride of the Yankees is a really inspiring American feature film. Came out, as I said, in 1942, the same year as Gentleman Jim. Was produced by Samuel Goldwyn, and it was actually from a story written by Paul Gallico, who was the author of The Snow Goose and went on to write The Poseidon Adventure. This is a biographical film, true story, of a man called Lou Gehrig. It was played in the film by a wonderful film star from that time in Gary Cooper. He played the title role. And the film is a tribute, and it's also a celebration of the life of one of America's greatest sporting icons. Who was nicknamed the Iron Horse. Now, Lou Gehrig played for the New York Yankees baseball team of the late 1920s and the late 1930s. And the film tells the story of his childhood through his family relationships, his marriage, and his record-breaking career with the Yankees until the tragic and his very early and premature death. It's very easy when you look at modern films. I looked at whether I'd do Moneyball, which I think is one of the great films, let alone sporting films, with Brad Pitt. It's one of my favourites. But it's easy to overlook Pride of the Yankees because Lou Gehrig had such an understated but heroic career, and he was so dedicated to the sport. It's very easy just to sort of forget it. So I watched the film recently. I think John's actually looked at a few clips as well. I watched it recently to just remind myself that it really is a good film and how good Gary Cooper is playing that real man. And I have to say to you guys, I wasn't disappointed. If I show you the cover of the film, that's Pride of the Yankees on DVD, and that's Gary Cooper as Lou Gehrig. If I then showed you a real picture of Lou Gehrig, right, and there's Gary Cooper, you can probably understand why he was the only film star that was lined up to play the part. His similarities facially and his mannerisms are very, very similar to Lou Gehrig. He was actually the only real candidate for the part. Sorry. So if you want to watch that, it's on. You can watch the whole film on YouTube, and there's various clips. Can I say to you that you might assume that being a cricket fan, I'd have picked a cricket film. Unfortunately, there aren't any really. There's only a couple. But to watch this film, you don't need to be a baseball fanatic, and I'm certainly not. And you don't need to understand all the rules, which I certainly don't. It's just a very good retelling of an outstanding career. I do wish that someone one day would make a quality film about cricket, because there's so many heroes that the film could be about. But up to date, there literally has only been probably one or two worth turning the DVD on for. So the film was premiered in July 1942 in New York, which was the place of his birth. And it only came out a year after his very sad and tragic death, which was on the 2nd of June, 1941. He was only 37. Gehrig was probably the finest first base and batsman in the history of baseball. And the film is now widely considered as one of America's best ever sports films. The co-stars include Walter Brennan, Dan Dura, who turned Winchester 73 for you Western fans. Teresa Wright as Lou's wife, Eleanor, and also several of his former and his current Yankee teammates. And this included Babe Ruth playing Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth was in such poor health that by the end of the film, he did end up hospitalized with pneumonia. He was a very poorly man, but he meant to do the film, in the memory of his great friend and teammate. And
he lived a hard life, hasn't he, Chris? Babe Ruth.
By God, he lived the life of several men.
Yeah.
Wasn't always Lou Gehrig's best friend, by the way, but they were great teammates.
There's very specific reasons for that, aren't there?
There are specific reasons for that, but this is a family show.
Very true.
That's a picture which I found in their playing days, Lou Gehrig, Babe Ruth, and the baseball. I only wish I owned that, because that baseball signed by both of them, I don't know how much that would go on the open market. It's probably approaching $1 million. So the film itself is a multi-nominated film. It was nominated for the Oscars in 11 categories, and it won one of them. It's made up of footage of actual matches as well as reconstructions. The film climaxes with the reconstruction of Lou Gehrig's emotional farewell to the fans in Yankee Stadium in 1939, and his farewell included the luckiest man on the face of the earth speech, which was delivered by him on having to retire because of contracting the debilitating and actually fatal condition called ALS, or as it became known, Lou Gehrig disease. Now here in the UK, we refer to ALS, which is, I'll try and pronounce it, it's amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Here it's known as motor neuron disease. After Lou got a very grim medical report, and he went to various consultants, he was officially diagnosed on his 36th birthday after 6 days of tests with this condition. And 2 days later, the New York Yankees announced his immediate retirement from the game. There was a clamour to honour this man, and so July the 4th, Independence Day, was designated as Lou Gehrig Appreciation Day at the Yankee Stadium. Between games, they often played 2 games with an interval. Between 2 games against the Washington Senators on Independence Day, 61,808 fans packed this stadium for the ceremonies which were staged on the field at Yankee Stadium. The New York Times described the event as probably as colourful and dramatic pageant as ever has been enacted on a baseball field. And the manager, the famous Joe McCarthy, Yankees manager, described on the microphone that Gehrig was the finest example of a ball player, sportsman and citizen that baseball had ever known. There were many trophies and gifts presented to Gehrig from people and organisations representing every walk of life, from the very top to, shall we say, the menial jobs that get done at a stadium. They were all there. And the film shows how Lou Gehrig took these trophies and he actually laid them on the ground, because by then he hadn't got the strength in his arms to hold them. Now, this is a very, very famous picture, I hope you can see it, of a packed Yankee Stadium and Lou Gehrig's gifts are by his feet. And he's sort of trying to compose himself in what must have been the most difficult circumstances. This is a rare colour picture of Lou Gehrig at the time. And he was a very modest and very quiet man. He was a superstar, but he was struggling to keep his emotions in check. He was encouraged by the massive crowd to address the crowd, and he gave what has become known as baseball's Gettysburg Address. His remarks were mainly spontaneous, and Gary Cooper gives a dramatized version of this speech in the film, which is, I can only describe as very moving. I'd like to compare something. Here's Lou Gehrig starting his speech, which is a famous address. And here's Gary Cooper actually giving that address on film. And the similarities by the filmmaker are quite startling. You'll notice above Gary Cooper's head lots of bunting, and that's what made it such a huge game. The whole ground was decked out for this event. Gehrig's speech is now recognised as one of the most famous in the history of professional sport, and he received an over a 2-minute standing ovation from the crowd. He was visibly shaken from giving the speech, as you can see there, and you also see that that's Babe Ruth, the real Babe Ruth, was there and is in this corner behind Lou Gehrig. Of course, Gehrig's records were still extremely fresh in the majority of baseball fans' memories when the film was released, and his premature death touched the entire nation. The film's closing line is, "Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth." And that was voted the 38th of the top movie quotes in the top 100 American films. The film actually reconstructs the speech, because Lou Gehrig began his speech with, "Today I consider myself the luckiest man," but for dramatic effect, it was actually used as the last line of the film. Pride of the Yankees was the 7th highest grossing film of 1942, took over $8 million in 1942, and it received a string of critical acclaim, including Variety called it a shining epitaph. Lou Gehrig was also named the 25th greatest hero in American cinema as recently as 2003. The film was also ranked 22nd on the list of the 100 most inspiring films in American cinema, and Pride of the Yankees has been recently ranked 3rd in the top 10 list of all-time sports films. Guys, I'm not doing it justice, but I can only say to you, it's well worth watching to understand a bit more about, I don't know, sportsmen, American sport, whatever you want. It's a tremendous watch.
Oh.
Okay, a bit about the man. Lou Gehrig was born in New York in 1903, and he was born of German immigrant parents. And unfortunately, their siblings, their 2 sisters and brother, all died in infancy, leaving him as the only child. He was educated at Columbia University, and he made his debut for the New York Yankees, age 19, in 1923. Lou Gehrig always batted at number 4, because his job was to come in immediately following Babe Ruth in the batting lineup, and he became one of the highest run scorers in baseball history. I wouldn't want to be the pitcher facing Babe Ruth followed by Lou Gehrig. Lou Gehrig played 17 seasons for the New York Yankees between 1923 and 1939. He earned the nickname Iron Horse from the media due to his incredible reliability, stamina, and durability. He was left-handed, unlike Gary Cooper, who was right-handed and had never played baseball in his life. But he played Gehrig as a left-hander in the film with a considerable amount of coaching. When he tried to throw the ball, they did use a double, because to try to throw left-handed when you're right-handed, guys, we all know that is about impossible. Cooper really did a tremendous job. In 1927, Gehrig had one of the greatest seasons of any batsman in history. He hit 47 home runs. He helped the Yankees to a winning record of 110 wins to 44 losses, and they won the World Series. On June the 3rd, 1932, that's around that time, I can't be accurate, but that's a typical pose of Lou Gehrig at the plate. In a single match, he was the first player to hit 4 home runs, and he hit 493 home runs in his career. Lou Gehrig was part of a team that won 6 World Series titles, 4 consecutively. He was personally selected in the All-Stars baseball team 7 consecutive years. He was twice the All-American Most Valuable Player, and he was the Yankees captain from 1935 until he retired. But the record that is always famous for is consecutive appearances. This is a picture taken from a match where Lou Gehrig actually goes to 2,000 consecutive matches. Baseball, like cricket, is a statistician's dream. I don't understand all the statistics, so I'm not going to use them. So I will use these consecutive appearances. It stood for 56 years, and it's only been broken recently by Carl Ripken Jr. in 1995. He actually went to 2,130 consecutive matches of baseball in the major league. It's 14 seasons without missing a game. His streak began in June the 2nd. I'll say that with emphasis in a minute. He started on June the 2nd, 1925. And although he was ill, although he broke fingers and bones, and he got hit many, many times to the head, no helmet, he was an ever-present until he voluntarily benched himself. He benched himself against the Detroit Tigers in 1939, which is in the film, because his performances were being badly affected by whatever was wrong with him. And it eventually forced him to retire at 36. He died 2 years later. At this match where he benched himself, the Tiger fans gave him a standing ovation on hearing that he'd withdrawn from 2,130 previous games. Lou Gehrig's funeral was attended by many thousands of people, including Babe Ruth, and the mayor of New York ordered that all flags should be flown at half-mast in the city, and all the major stadiums in baseball followed suit. His surviving wife, Eleanor, that's a lovely picture of them both at one of the Yankees matches. He called her his companion for life. She survived Lou Gehrig and never remarried, and she dedicated the rest of her life to supporting research into ALS. She passed away 43 years after Lou on her 80th birthday, as recently as 1984. There is now a clinic at the Columbia University named the Eleanor and Lou Gehrig ALS Center, which specializes in research into his condition. If I've got 2 more minutes, Keith, is that all right?
Yeah.
Right. Lou's legacy. Many awards, I'll pick out a couple. He was entered into the Baseball Hall of Fame at the age of 36, then the youngest player ever to be given that honor. He was made in 1969, the Baseball Writers Association of America voted him the greatest first baseman of all baseball history. A Lou Gehrig Memorial Award is presented annually to the player in the major leagues who best exhibits his character and integrity on and off the field. What an amazing thing to receive if you receive that. And he was the first player ever in history of baseball to have his shirt number retired. You can never have number 4. But a remarkable thing happened when I was doing this research. I had no idea until I looked at this. On March the 4th this year, this month, in other words, Major League Baseball declared the June the 2nd to be henceforth known as Lou Gehrig Day throughout the game. I was amazed. So when June the 2nd comes up, guys, it's Lou Gehrig Day in America in baseball. This date was chosen because of 2 things. It's the start of his 2,130 games, June the 2nd, and it's also, by sheer coincidence, the date of his death.
Her Majesty will be pleased about that.
I beg your pardon?
Her Majesty the Queen will be pleased about that.
That's recently appeared on a lot of websites. That's publicity for Lou Gehrig Day, June the 2nd. I would think it would be shown on something like ESPN, and I'll certainly try and find out if it is. finally, I just say to you that the Major League Baseball plans to use Lou Gehrig Day to raise money and public awareness for ALS. And Lou Gehrig becomes only the third player in the history of baseball to be honoured with a day dedicated to his name. It's hoped that they can find a cure for what Lou called his bad break. So it was set up by a committee of people who have either families or their own personal issues with the condition. I think the Pride of the Yankees film has played its part in maintaining Lou's memory and his courage, and the pressing need for more money and more research to find a cure for what is a killer disease. Thank you. That's Lou Gehrig, the great baseball player.
Brilliant.
Hello, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely fabulous, that, Chris. Absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Can I just
Thank you.
refer you to this book, Bill Bryson, One Summer, America, 1927. There's many outstanding events took place. 1927.
Yes,
Many outstanding events took place in that year, and as Chris has referred to, there was a battle throughout the season between Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, and that features in a chapter in the book, and also various other pages in the book. It was that big. It's terrific.
John, could you show it? John, could you show it again and keep talking, because we're not catching it on film.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
That's fine. That's great.
Yeah, one interesting little story in it. Ty Cobb was also a top baseball player at the time.
Yeah.
A rival of Gehrig's in many ways. There was a film made about him as well. He used to dislike Gehrig a lot because he wasn't your typical bloke. He was in a sporting arena. He didn't socialise. He didn't drink a lot, smoke a lot, or anything like that. He was a homeboy, and typically Ty Cobb, a man's man, used to stand near him when he was at first base and insult him and wind him up terribly. And it got so he used to insult him from the bench as well, from the dugout. And it got so bad one time that Gehrig ran off the pitch, ran into the where he was sitting with his mates, and he had to be protected by another bigger bloke because Gehrig, mild-mannered, would have torn him apart. And after that, apparently, Ty Cobb learned to respect him.
Yeah, that's a good story. That's true.
Yeah.
In that 1927 season, what Gehrig did was overshadowed to a degree by his teammate Babe Ruth.
Yeah,
because Babe Ruth broke the record for home runs.
That's right.
So that rivalry on the field wasn't, but however, there was a lot of rivalry off the field. That was.
Yeah.
But
I mean, up to 2/3 of the way through the season, Gehrig was leading Babe Ruth and had a dip in form, and Babe Ruth continued and got 60 home runs, and Gehrig got 47. But that 47 was about twice as many as the nearest in the entire league got in that season.
Yeah.
I bet they didn't sell many tickets for the film in Boston, Chris.
Oh, I think they sold tickets everywhere for that film. That's when he gave the speech. That's he was overcome, and Babe Ruth broke the ranks and went over to him and hugged him. And apparently in the press box, the hardened members of the press corps sort of shed a couple of tears on that one.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, look, talking to Chris about it and having a look on YouTube, there are a couple of clips that just a few minutes long with a famous speech of his that are well worth watching, aren't they, Chris? If you go onto YouTube and seek him out, it brought a tear to my leg anyway.
Yeah. Right, chaps.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, well done.
I promise you a quiz. I promise you a quiz. So I've got one prepared. It's initially about Formula One. So I hope you're okay with this. So are you ready?
No.
Yeah.
Go on then.
As I ever will be for a Formula One.
Who is the only other Formula One champion in the last 7 years?
The young German.
Alonso.
No, young German.
Vettel. Vettel.
Vettel.
No,
Oh, okay.
Verstappen.
Racket.
No.
Stroll. Stroll.
No. It's. Do you want the answer?
Spaniard.
Scandinavian.
Alonso.
Scandinavian.
He is Scandinavian.
Eric the
Raikkonen.
Viking.
Raikkonen.
No.
No.
Okay, it's Nico Rosberg.
Yeah.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Who was the first Formula One champion in 1950?
Fangio.
Andrew?
No.
No, it's
Jim
no, it's the
Clark.
other one. Oh,
never
what's
heard of
his
it.
name?
Yeah.
Nuvolari.
He's Italian, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe
He's
so. Yes.
Italian.
Yep. It was
Sancho.
Farina.
Who?
Giuseppe
Farina.
Farina.
Oh, Giuseppe. Giuseppe.
Giuseppe. Yep. Who was the first British Formula One champion?
Mike Hawthorne.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Correct. How many Brits have won the Formula One championship?
5,
No.
6.
4.
4.
3.
8.
James Hunt,
Close.
Mike Hawthorne, Jim Clark,
Graham Hill.
Graham Hill,
7.
9.
Jim Clark,
He's not
John
8,
Surtees.
9.
Jackie Stewart.
It's 9.
Nigel Mansell.
9.
Oh, Nigel Mansell. Forgot Mansell.
I forgot Mansell.
Cool.
Yeah.
Jensen
Lewis
Button.
Hamilton,
Jensen Button. Yeah.
Yeah.
10.
It's 9 actually. So, which Brit finished fourth in Sunday's race?
Lando.
Lando,
Lando Norris. Yep. He's a Brit. He was born in Britain, but I think he's lived his life in Belgium as well.
Why would you call your son Lando? I mean, it's a character in Star Wars, isn't he?
That's probably why.
That's
Yeah.
probably why, John.
Probably.
That's probably right.
Yeah.
Good enough reason.
perhaps conceived when he reached the heights.
Yeah. Walk
Only
back to
two-
9.
Only 2 Americans have won the title. Who are they?
Andretti.
Phil Hill.
Mario Andretti. Yeah.
Bill Hill and Mario
Phil Hill.
Andretti. Yep.
Andretti.
Keith,
Only
can you,
3.
you just your laptop? We're losing you.
Sorry.
That's it.
Only
better as it
3.
was.
Only 3 countries have won the title once. Any ideas?
Only 3 countries have won the title.
Yeah.
Finland.
there's-
Finland.
New Zealand.
No. New Zealand is one. Yeah.
Australia.
Australia.
Scotland,
South Africa.
Austria.
South Africa. Yeah.
Brazil.
No.
Austria.
Senna won it more than once.
Yeah.
Spain.
No.
Argentina,
No. Sounds French.
Morocco,
Belgium.
No. It's the third one's Canada.
Oh.
Any idea who the
Canada.
drivers are?
Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Jack
Jack
Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Yeah. Who's the New Zealander?
Danny Hume.
Yep.
Then Hume, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Good
who's
answer,
the South African?
Scheckter.
Jody Scheckter.
Gator. Yep.
Scheckter. Yeah, Jody
Yeah.
Scheckter.
Yep. Who was the first British constructor to take the constructor title?
Colin
Yeah.
Chapman.
No.
Colin Chapman.
Williams.
Williams.
No.
Cooper.
Lotus.
Cooper.
Cooper.
Yep.
Cooper Climax.
And who was their driver?
Jack Brabham.
Jack Brabham.
Brabham.
Yes. That's correct. Yep. Right, that's my Formula One questions overdone. Then, but I've got some more. I've got some more to keep going. Who was the last team to beat England in a World Cup qualifier?
Poland.
Iceland.
Ireland.
No.
Croatia.
Ukraine.
Ukraine. 1-0 in 2009.
Oh.
England player was sent off in the game? Do you know who it was?
Usually Wayne Rooney, isn't it?
David Beckham.
More crucial than that,
More to the goalkeeper. Yeah.
it was the goalkeeper. It was Rob Green.
Part.
Robson.
Rob Green.
It was Rob Green. It should have been sent off every game. Which England player in the game against San Marino had previously played for both Stalybridge Celtic and Northampton Town?
Ward-Prowse.
No,
Oh, Keane.
Sounds
It
like
was-
Vardy.
it was Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Who scored their first ever England goal in that game?
Bellingham.
No,
No,
You've-
what?
just
Watkins.
said his name.
Substitute. Watkins.
Prowse.
Yeah.
No, it was Ward-Prowse.
No.
Yeah.
How many England players this century have had double barrel names?
Bloody hell.
Ian Storymore.
This century.
Well, there-
Oh, sorry.
Oh, this century.
This century.
One.
Yeah.
Four.
No, the answer's
No, there were two playing on there.
Calvert-Lewin,
I've done that.
Ward-Prowse. Loftus-Cheek.
Alexander Arnold.
Loftus Cheek.
Hudson
Yeah.
Odoi. Yeah,
Alexander Arnold.
he's actually 7.
Wright Phillips.
Right.
Yeah, right.
Which- Who was the only player with a double barrel name in the 20th century?
Ian Storymore.
Storymore, yeah.
Well done, Paul. Mhm.
Okay. Who won promotion to Division 1 at the age of 48?
Sam Matthews.
Stanley
Sam
Matthews.
Matthews.
Yeah.
I didn't realise this. He actually scored the crucial second goal in that game. He outpaced the defence.
Wow.
Unbelievable. Dennis Law, who did he play his final competitive game for?
Man City.
Scotland.
Scotland. What was his first club?
Huddersfield.
And
Huddersfield.
Sam, the final question, Sam Curran scored 95 not out. What was his previous highest?
15. 15.
15. That's it. All
Well
done.
done, Keith.
Right.
Fantastic.
We'll see you next week, chaps.
Yeah, okay.
Bless you a
Yeah,
minute.
cheers. Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks.
Yeah.
See you.
Excellent, Chris.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers,
Bye.
mate. All the best.
Bye.